So before we get started, I put on the website in the consultation form where we start recording training sessions and sessions and consultations.
Okay.
So some human reactivity, people coming into the home, stuff like that.
Yeah, and dogs also, especially dogs in the home and in the home. I guess it happened to my parents, and yeah, kind of like it happened. She didn't react well at Gemma's at an apartment once, so it's kind of in enclosed spaces or just what she deems to be her space.
Sure. So like outside on a walk, she'll be reactive towards dogs.
It's hit or miss.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she gets defensive, I'd say.
Sure.
So if another dog reacts, she reacts back, and probably disproportionately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Depends on
Over the top.
Yeah, and she's like on a walk, she hasn't actually done anything, she just kind of will act scary.
Okay. And then like if a person comes in, I'm assuming like when people enter the home, and then you said I guess you're at somebody else's house, and then she was in a kind of confined space, and then she was being a little defensive there too.
Yeah, it's not even that confined, but it's just, but usually when it is indoors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any bite attempts or nips or anything like that?
She just nipped one dog.
Okay.
Yeah, but never people. She's, she'll kind of like, she would kind of nip at people's heels, but never actually.
Make contact?
Yeah,
Is this like when they're walking around the home?
usually when they're leaving.
They're leaving?
Yeah.
Sure, okay. Is it like where she'll be a bit reactive and then she'll calm down, and if somebody moves, she'll bark?
Yeah.
Kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, once they're sitting down, like she's like calms down, but then like when they leave,
They trigger, she triggers?
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
And
Anything
she,
else?
well, she hates the male person.
Yeah.
Which I know is kind of normal, but we'd rather her just, I'm worried if she got out or got to them, if she'd be aggressive.
Okay.
I think that's the one person I'd be worried about her being aggressive too.
Okay, are you guys in a single family home or like a condo unit type?
Single family.
Okay. Anything else?
I mean, I would say that like if she sees like if somebody, even if somebody she knows like comes to like give us a handshake or a high or like a hug or something like that, then like she definitely gets nervous about that.
Sure.
So even on walks like that, like if the other dog gets too close to us, wants to come say hi to us, she gets really upset about
Yeah,
that.
she's
So
pretty
like-
protective.
yeah.
Sure.
And we're having a baby, so we're just also, that's why we're trying to really be proactive, because I'm not so worried about her with the baby, but I just think there's gonna be a lot going on and a lot of
Yeah, it's been
people.
more people
Big
coming in.
change.
Yeah,
Sure.
She's had babies and kids and it's been fine.
When's the baby due?
December.
So we're July, August now?
Yeah.
18 weeks to go. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So there's plenty of time.
Yeah.
And you said she met children and babies before, and she's been fine?
Yeah, she's been fine. It's, with young children, the only thing is if they're kind of running around, she'll get excited, and she wouldn't be aggressive, but I would just be worried about her kind of like jumping up and
yeah.
knocking them over.
Sure, okay. And then you had done previous training before?
Yeah, we've done a little bit last fall mostly.
Okay, was it like clicker-based training?
No, it was,
It's on Zoom.
well, yeah, we did some basic obedience on Zoom, but then we had 2 or maybe just 2 in-person training
Oh, okay.
that I thought they were good, but it was, I hate to knock like positive reinforcement because we're all about positive reinforcement, but I think she also needs a little like
Positive punishment?
yeah, exactly. Like we're not gonna hit her, but like she needs a little she just like, I think like even with my voice, she just needs a little firmer checks. Like she just needs to know that no means no. And at the beginning she was so afraid, so if I got angry at her even slightly, she would run away. So I think we're finally at a point where she's comfortable enough where I can get mad at her and she understands that I'm not going to hurt her, I'm just correcting her.
Okay, that's a good way to put it, and we'll talk more about that in depthly. Okay, so then the training that you did, was it like reward-based?
Yeah, it was reward-based.
Was it rewarding when she was like calm type of thing? Or? Gotcha.
And the problem though is she gets so worked up that she doesn't want
The
treats.
food.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I mean, I think like this is kind of at the root of it. She's just afraid. She definitely had a rough upbringing. We don't know too much about it, but she was 8 months when we got her, and she's a year and a half now.
Sure.
So she's made so much progress, but there's still some fear there, and then just kind of the like stimuli of city living is kind of stressful for her. So we're just trying to kind of like get her past some of those things and keep her focused.
Okay.
She gets afraid on like we have a yard, so we'll let her out in the yard mostly. But then like on walks, like she will go on them, but she'll be like afraid.
Yeah, we have to kind of drag her out of the
Yeah.
like out the door. She doesn't want to go.
Okay.
Yeah. So once we get past like the end of the block, and then like we'll go on an adventure, and she'll be nervous the whole time, but like we'll be moving then at least. But yeah,
Sure.
it's not her favorite thing.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, nothing I can think of. We'll let you know.
Okay, so I'm gonna have you hold the leash if you have it right there, okay? So, her issue is nervousness. So fear, nervousness, and anxiety look similar, but there's like defining features, or defining feature, if you will. A fearful dog won't let it go. Okay, she'd be here, she'd be growling at me, look at me, growling, or they'll bark, like they don't let it go.
Yeah.
Anxious dogs want to move around a lot. And they can't settle, they'll lay down, they'll stand up, they'll walk over, jump on a chair, get off, lay over here, they just keep moving. Nervous energy will calm down when everything's calm, and then when something changes, they'll trigger.
That makes a lot of
Okay,
sense.
so the moment I walked in, I already knew you had a nervous dog. Okay, because of how she responded. Okay, because a fearful dog will start barking and then backing away, because as I enter, it puts presence into the room, and fear wants to move away from presence. So she would have started flipping out and running over here. Okay.
Okay.
Instead, she just looked at me and grumbled, and once I had a seat, she just calmed down. And that's why I asked that question: if someone comes over, does she settle, and if something changes, will she bark? And you said yes. Yep, that's a nervous dog. Okay. So right now, everything was fine. And then the moment I start clapping and snapping my fingers, all of a sudden she has a problem with it. Okay, so that's nervous energy. Probably the reason why you're mistaking it for fear is her flight response.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 4 responses to things: fight, flight, avoidance, submission. Okay, those are just responses, but then there's also like emotional responses, right? Nervousness, fear, anxiety, aggression, or anger, if you will. And you can have an anxious dog that wants to run, right? Or a fearful dog that wants to run, or a nervous dog that wants to run, or a nervous dog that wants to fight. A fearful dog that wants to fight, right? Like, so it breaks down even more. So in certain, and not to say she's not scared, right? Because everybody's capable of being scared, anxious, nervous, fearful, or aggressive, right? So then we're looking at the context in themselves. But I think your dog at root is actually more nervous than anything, okay? So it's kind of like for a human, like, I remember before I owned my own business and I would go on job interviews, and get nervous, you'd be anxious, right? And then I got over that because I've done so many, the worst they could say is no, right? But I've also grew up on the South Side where there was gang violence and shooting and stuff. And there was times where I heard gunshots and I got scared, right? So different reaction according to the context. So same thing for her as well. So then, when it comes to the people coming in, what's happening is when she triggers into territorial behavior, which is normal, in my book it's healthy, it gets intertwined with her nervousness, and she doesn't know how to handle the situation. She's not built for it, okay? Just like with humans. Not everyone is built to be the president of the United States. Not everyone is built to run their own business, right? There's some people are leaders, some people are followers. It's the same thing for dogs. Some are leaders, some are followers, okay? So for her, in that situation, if you're not communicating in a way that she understands, she's like, okay, this person is entering, and as dumb as this sounds, she doesn't really understand that when you open the door, you're allowing the person in, because you trust and know them. She just goes, there was a knock, there's a potential threat, and that threat might be coming in right now. And then she gets nervous about it, and she doesn't know how to handle the situation. And then after some time, she's able to resolve it, right, and calm down a bit, but it's still there lingering, because then when somebody moves, boom, all of a sudden she triggers again, okay? Once she learns how to actually pacify the nervousness, you technically shouldn't see a response, okay? So the person gets up, and she might like look, but she won't growl or bark or whatever it is, right? And over time, she can look and go like, okay, this has nothing to do with me, and just like handle it, okay? So I cannot make her unnervous. We can just teach her how to handle her nervousness better.
Okay.
And teach you how to handle a nervous dog. Okay, so that's the other part of it. So it's kind of like having like parents or families that have a child with a disability, right? You can't change that, but we can learn how to raise a child with a disability and like bring them to the world with a disability and all that stuff, right? And same thing for dogs. So the other thing was when you said you got her at 8 months and she kind of already came to you with these like predisposed issues, right? A lot of stuff is typically genetics. Okay. When I first started, and there's even trainers now that are very popular, and they're always like, oh, there's no bad dogs, you know, it's only the owner and all that stuff. It's not true. Okay. In the beginning, when I first started training, I was on that thought process, and I was like, yeah, for sure, like, you know, it's a dog's a dog, and they're not screwed up, we're the ones that screwed them up. And then I've had a few cases throughout the years where these were really good families, and they got a puppy. And over the course of time, like, it was evident from the get-go that that puppy had issues, but it went unaddressed for so long that all of a sudden we had a full-grown dog with problems. You know, I have a scar here, about this big chunk of tissue missing from a 3-month-old red heeler that bit the husband and the son 5 times before I showed up. Yeah, so when I came in, like, I was like, wow, that puppy is legit. And the lady was a volunteer at the rescue. They brought in the mother. The mother had the litter at the rescue. She actually helped hand raise and whelp these puppies and took one home at 8 weeks. And she's like, I know for a fact that this puppy had no abuse whatsoever. And I was like, that's genetics. Okay? So, and I get people that do everything by the book, and the dog still ends up screwed up.
Growing up, my family had a puppy who had issues from the beginning, and he unfortunately bit someone and had to be put down. And yeah, I mean, we did everything to address it, but yeah. So, but that's also why I'm like particularly sensitive about her.
So when we get a dog like this, right, and you see more kind of fearful, fear-based responses, our first instinct is typically to avoid any harm or stressors or things like that, right? But that just makes the problem worse. Okay, so it's counterintuitive to how we think. Because if it wasn't, I wouldn't be here. Right? Because everybody tells you positive reinforcement, positive association, treats, high rewards, lots of praise, keep the dog on a threshold, like all these things, right? But that's not realistic. You said it yourself, if she's too stressed out, she won't take food. It's like if you're in a burning building, you're gonna grab a brownie? No, right? But for her, because you're thinking, this is just like a dog in passing. Because you're like a human and you're like, there's no threat here really because that dog's on a leash. She doesn't see it that way. Okay, she just sees the energy and she's like, that energy is not good energy and I'm gonna go into self-preservation and fight mode. And then when you're trying to bring that treat, she's like, do you not see I'm trying to like save my own life here, you know? So that's why those things don't matter in that sense, because she's too stressed, right? Keeping a dog on the threshold, you live in Chicago, right? At least, I mean, if you're in the city, right? You can turn a corner, you can see a dog or a person or whatever, or someone can say, oh my God, look how cute your dog is, can I come and pet her, right? And all of a sudden you have an issue. So it's not realistic to keep a dog on the threshold because there's so much going on. The harness we have here, the no-pull harness, actually creates more agitation. Yes. Okay. Now I understand it's called a no-pull harness. Well, a no-pull harness is actually an oxymoron because harnesses are meant for pulling, right?
Yeah.
Horses were harnesses to pull carriages, right? Huskies were harnesses to pull sleds. What happens is it diverts tension to the side so the dog doesn't have as much power, because that's where the power is, it's in the chest, right? They push forward with the back legs and they pull forward with the front legs like this. So here all that does is divert the tension. But what happens is it creates a frustration, an agitation, and it amplifies behavior, okay? So I used to do protection training many years ago. One of the things that we would do was we would put the dog, maybe a German Shepherd, on harness, and we'd clip the leash to the harness. And then we'd have someone holding the dog on harness, and we'd have somebody across from us agitating the dog, acting suspicious, trying to get the dog to growl and grumble and lunge and bark and then snap, right? And we would pull back, because we're trying to create agitation. Right, so imagine if you're trying to get to something, right? Or even in the movies when like they're getting in a fight, they pull them back and to get more amped up because they want to get to the thing, right? Same thing for dogs. Okay, so when you pull your dog away, you're creating more agitation. And then I've had so many people with puppies, because everybody puts a harness on the puppy, because they don't want anything on the trachea, right? Which I understand. But what happens is that friendly puppy goes from I want to say hi to everything, and you're always pulling the puppy away, right? And then the puppy thinks, man, every time I see a dog or I see a person get pulled away, and then they get frustrated because they can't get to it, so then they start barking. So then friendly puppy becomes frustrated, puppy becomes agitated, puppy becomes aggressive dog over the course of time. And I said this to so many people, and they're like, holy crap, that's exactly what happened with our puppy.
Yeah, and that's one thing I wanted to ask about, because she, like, we work on just like sitting outside and watching people go by, but I don't know what to do when she's pulling, and I have to kind of pull her back, so I feel like I'm kind of feeding into it, but in order to prevent that.
Yes, because of the tool that you have.
Okay.
That would be the communication, technically speaking. Okay. But that's why there's no pull harnesses or gentle ears, there's slip chains, there's prong collars, there's e-collar, and then there's so many other tools in between. Okay. I use prong and remote collar.
Okay.
Those are my primary tools of choice. I'm actually just mainly e-collar. The only time I use prong collar is like if I had a young lady, she was like maybe 900 pounds, she had a 150-pound dog, reactive Great Dane, and she lived in Bucktown. So she turned the corner and see a dog. So she needed prong and e-collar because she needed physical leverage in case she got caught off guard, but she didn't have the physical strength or capacity to control her dog, so then she needed the e-collar to help shut down the behavior, okay? Because that's not dependent on strength.
We actually got an e-collar, we haven't used it yet, but I brought it with.
Okay, I'll take a look at it a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, so when we get dogs like this, we tend to stay away from like physical consequences and things like that because we're afraid of making it worse. Which if you're doing it incorrectly, yes, you can make it worse. But another dog, if she got out of hand with another dog, they wouldn't go, you know what, you're anxious or nervous, so I'm not gonna bite you. I'm gonna just ignore this and like hope that you like just get better, right? They just bite the dog. They don't care. But because it can look terrible, right? But then once it's been resolved and dog's like, hey, you don't try to jump on me, if you don't jump on me, we're good. And she goes, okay, if I don't jump on you, I won't get bit. Great. Now we have harmony, okay? But humans don't think that way, okay? So it takes a little bit of kind of having to change how you feel about things or your psyche on a couple of things if you're wanting to help her get better, okay? So the reason why I use remote collar is because it allows you to be physical with your dog without being physical with your dog, because it's a depressible button, okay? So a professional grade e-collar should be much similar to like a miniaturized TENS unit. Are you familiar with TENS therapy?
Yeah. That's the little electric thing I have.
Oh.
Yeah, and it moves your muscles.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So it's a muscle stimulator. There are cheaper models of e-collar that you can find that are not the same. And if you have one of those, I'll tell you, return it or throw it away because it's no good. So you want to use a professional grade e-collar because it's going to be delivered as a muscle contraction, okay? I like to think of it as a bite on a button, okay? So it allows you to be physical, right, the contraction, but you're not being physical as in the yanking, okay? So when we think about physicality and consequence, people are like, but isn't it going to make the dog worse? I go, it depends on how you do it. People tend to think punishment based, okay? So like, let's say she's being bad. You pop the e-collar on her. She's being bad, and then you just quote unquote shock her, right? Now she's having a flat negative to the behavior. And if you're doing it wrong, yes, you'll make the behavior worse because she has no idea where it's coming from or why it's happening, okay? Because she's not meant to have that muscle contracted. Okay, it's a great tool, but it's unnatural to a dog. So we have to teach it to them in a way that she perceives as, oh, this is a line of communication, okay? And I can either respond when it's really low, or I can respond when it's really high. She ultimately decides that. So the first thing we always teach is heel. So if you watch my videos on YouTube, almost always the first class is heel, okay? Number of reasons. Heel, when a dog feels e-collar, the first instinct is typically to move, more likely gonna run away, okay? Because they don't know what it is, so she's like, I don't know what this is, I'm gonna get away from it. She's gonna go in flight mode. So it makes the dog wanna move. Heel is a moving behavior, right? The dog is walking next to you or supposed to walk next to you. So when she feels the collar, it allows her to express the need to move, but at the same time allows to shape the behavior of when you feel the e-collar, don't run from it. If anything, run to me, okay? So that's one thing. Two, it allows us to layer in the e-collar in a very non-confrontational manner. We're not letting her be bad. We're working in an environment where it's just neutral, and so that she's trying to get her to pay attention to you and to walk with you, okay? 3, most people walk their dogs 3 times a day in the city, 7 days a week, because they have to take your dog out to go potty, right? So it's something you practice regularly, so she gets exposed to it very consistently, and you have something that you can practice on a daily basis to get yourself comfortable with it, okay? Heel resolves like 70% of problems, okay? So when I get my reactivity cases or anything like this, nervous cases, I actually have like 2 other dogs just like this right now, and at the end of the first class, the dog was fine, okay? Because discipline done correctly calms dogs down, okay? But as humans, we think that physicality is abuse, okay? But it's how you do it. If you're just coming in and quote unquote shocking her for no reason, or you're going over the top and you're at 100 out of, maxed out, and you're like, sit, and she doesn't sit, and you're like, 100, right? Clearly there's something wrong there, okay? So there's a process to all this stuff. So it's any tool, like a bat, a baseball bat, right? It's meant to play baseball, but it can also do harm, right? So same thing with the prong collar. Prong collar is meant to be a training tool, but if misused, can obviously be abusive. So it's all about the psyche behind it. If I'm coming in and I have a dog that bites people, okay? And I have to go to 127, which is the max level of the collar, to stop the behavior. I'll do it, but there's a process. And then if I go, okay, we've tried everything, now we're gonna come in with the quote unquote last resort, 127, and then the dog stops the aggression, I achieved what I was paid to do. Jesse stopped the dog's aggression. Okay, we have to go to 127. We've already done everything else. Okay, boom, oh, it worked, right? I didn't come in going, oh, your dog's aggressive. I'm gonna assume your dog needs 127, because that's how people's brains work. They think, oh, this is the worst a dog could do, is always aggression. So they tend to want to come in hot. That's not how it works. We always start low, we work our way up.
That's good.
Okay, it's the same thing for humans with the stim, right? They start low and they work their way up, and they say, tell us when it's too much, right? And you go, oh, that's too much, and they lower it, they go, how about that? And like, that's good, I can deal with that, right? And then over time, you could potentially tolerate more, right? And that's meant to, the device is meant to either break up scar tissue or relax the muscle or ease back pain or whatever it is that you're using it for, but they start low, they work their way up. It's the same thing for dogs, okay? Now, technically speaking, yes, I could come in hot, because I know how to use a tool, okay? But the difference is most people tend to come in hot and stay hot, whereas I adjust according to the dog. The reason why I say this is going back to her behavior. If she did something to another dog, that dog would correct her to the extent needed. They wouldn't do low, medium, high. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If the dog just goes, I have to kick your ass, the dog just does it, right? Because that's behavior, it's just don't do that. Obedience is a little bit more nuanced because it's something the dog's not meant to do. Dogs are not meant to sit, stay down, come place, or heel. That's something that we've created to control our dogs, okay? However, behaviorally, another dog could correct her for something and she would learn that lesson and then stop that behavior, okay? So it's like simple but complicated at the same time, but everything is always, for the client, we work low, we work our way up, because you have to see the process. So I have a dog right now, the lady was super passive about the e-collar. She did not like it. She was only doing it because she needed to. We just had our 8th or so class, and we had to go to 127, I think 1 or 2 classes ago. And because we tried everything else and it wasn't working. So when we got to 127, she still had an issue with it, but then the last class she's like, oh yeah, I have no problem with it. Because she saw the clear difference. She's like, ever since we hit 127, my dog has been the least reactive she's been in the entire time I've had her. But I had to work her up. I had to try all the other approaches. So the owner was like, it isn't working, it isn't working, it isn't working. And then I go, this is gonna work, right? But then she still had to emotionally get around that thought process because she's thinking, it's 127, it's the highest power. And I go, yeah, but your dog's not gonna die. Like, it's not gonna make her bleed one day. Like, it's just a muscle contraction, right? So once she got over that mental and emotional hump, all of a sudden she's making a lot of progress, okay? Because in her case, it's just don't be reactive. Your case is a little bit different, okay? Because in your case, my assumption would be we want to address the nervousness, and ideally you would like her to open up to your guests, your friends, and your family, correct? So that's what makes things tricky. Because if it's just don't be reactive or don't be territorial, you can just provide consequence until she stops. And then I don't care what she does in response. Just don't lunge at my guest, or don't bark at my guest, or don't growl at my guest, right? But when you're trying to get her to suppress behaviors, but then at the same time open up, that's where things get a little bit more nuanced.
She has gotten better once, although it really depends who it is. Like friends and family are generally fine, but somehow she knows the difference between like someone coming in to like do work.
Mm-hmm.
She's not okay with that. She kind of senses the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's where she's probably the worst.
Sure, and stuff like that, because when they come in, they have a lot of things with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have their tool belt, their hat, or whatever, and they usually just kind of waltz right in,
Yeah.
right? All of that for her is just like threatening, okay?
Mhm.
So right there in that situation, because they're there, that person is there to perform a task. I'm not going to be like, okay, like, you know, would you mind like working with our dog,
Right.
right? It's right there. It's just don't be reactive,
Mm-hmm.
and then trying to get her to be as passive as possible and ignore the person, right? But let's say it's someone you brought over she had never met before, a new family member that is not like just moved to the city and like is not going to come over more often. You're probably going to see a similar response. The only difference is because that person would come over repeatedly, over the course of time, she could open up to them, okay? Unless you're more proactive, and then she would open up more quickly, okay? So, questions about any of that stuff?
Well, the only thing that I kind of forgot that I brought up is she goes to daycare once a week, and she's been good, but she started to also get a little possessive of the guy who runs the daycare. So that was another kind of, I guess, like he's now in her inner circle. So she's been kind of like starting to drive dogs away from him, which isn't really okay when he's trying to run a daycare.
Right, so that's more the daycare, because let's say you do the training and everything, since it's all based or associated to you, she's not gonna just transfer that to him. He would have to have a similar structure.
Okay.
You know, so I wouldn't expect anything to happen there. Could it change? Potentially. I've had that happen in over the course of a few years of like working with a client, and they're like, oh, my dog has issues at daycare, and then just due to discipline of training, the dog will stop the behaviors. I've also had dogs get worse at daycare, and so the theory is the dog has discipline and learns like, okay, and they're a softer dog, so they just kind of transfer it. Or it's a dog that's kind of more pushy and knows, okay, I have to behave with my family, but when I go to daycare, this is my time that I can just be a brat, right? And so they act out even more. So there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just, you don't know until like he tells you like, hey, she's gotten better, or like, hey, she's getting worse, okay? So like at my daycare here, like we have a number of dogs that can only come here. We've also had dogs that have been kicked out of daycares, and they're completely fine here.
Okay.
You know, so it's because we're structured. We reinforce discipline. We don't allow dogs to bark, all that stuff. So like earlier, there's a couple of dogs barking. Someone was pressing them, and now they stop barking. There's like right now we have like 20 dogs boarding. So there's 20 dogs back there playing on treadmill, doing a bunch of stuff, but it's quiet. So
yeah, with their guesting.
yeah, no, I think right now we're at like 40 dogs a day, and it's just quiet. Yeah. So.
As soon as you say that, someone.
Yeah, somebody barks. That's probably good. So when it comes to addressing this and stuff, how I would see this play out, because I tailor things according to what I see what you need and want, what the dog kind of needs and wants, and then it's like a meet in the middle, okay? Is the way I approach things is I just focus on the stuff that I know that matters, unless you want more, okay? So I don't do a program where it's like you have to go through all these things, you know? I know what the dog needs, and then what you may want to achieve on top of that, and then I give you your what I would recommend. Okay? So first thing we would do is heal, like I mentioned earlier. What does this fix? Okay, and you might say like, you know what, Jesse, she had dogs lunging at her. She doesn't even care. There's no reactivity. Well, great. Do heal. We'll fix that. Somebody just like sprung up on her, and she wasn't reactive, but they didn't touch her. I mean, that's great. That's all we care about. Just her to coexist. Okay. So then you're my feedback, and like we feel really good about this. Oh, great, Heal did his job outside, okay? And Heal's typically 2 classes. The third class would most likely be either socialization exercise and or people coming into the home, which would most likely have to be inside the home. And so, because I work primarily out of Oz Park.
We're right there.
Okay. Yeah, so we do a lot of training there.
Okay.
Because it's so busy. You know how busy it gets there, right?
Yeah.
So we train in the middle of all that stuff.
Okay.
And we get functionality in that context, so that when you leave, like, you already know how to work the stuff in a busy environment.
Great.
Okay. So 2 classes on HEAL. Classes 3 and 4 would be on territorial behavior and or socialization, how to correctly introduce her to people. Classes 5 and 6 would be a variable. Okay.
Okay.
And like, let's say everything's going really well, and you're like, hey Jesse, like, people coming into the home is great now, like, she's much easier to work with, she's much calmer, we feel really confident with this. I go, great, well then class 5 and 6 we can do recall, which is common called, because that's a very important command.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 most important things that every dog should know are HEAL and recall. Everything else is kind of if you need it. Okay. If you want more control, then I have 6, 9, and 12 week programs. Technically 3, 6, 9, and 12, but 3 is you just want to walk your dog. So think of 3 as I only want to walk my dog. So it's like release reactivity type stuff. 6 weeks is I want to walk my dog and like go to the park and let them be free. In your case, we're adding in like the behavioral things. The 9 week is go to the park, walk my dog, go to a restaurant, and my dog can just hang out with me. And then 12 is, we go hiking, we go to the dog beach, we go everywhere with our dog off leash. Our dog's gonna be off leash quite a bit. Then we do 12 classes for the full control. Okay. So you're at minimum at the 6 class range, at maximum 9, 12. Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to obedience is easy. That's why I know what I can be done within the time frame, as long as the owner's doing their homework. What's the biggest variable is always the behavior. Okay, because I'm seeing her here and I'm going on a nervousness scale. She's probably like at a 2 to a 3, but I'm only seeing her in this context, right? I know you said that she can be a little bit overreactive to like a dog being reactive to her, but I go that in my book, I'm like, that's probably not going to be the biggest problem once you start formal training.
Okay.
What's really going to be, because it's just walk past the dog, right? It's just ignore the dog.
Yeah.
We're not worried about interaction, but it's the stuff in the home, right? So for all I know, her nervous defensiveness in the home could be much greater, right? I'm going by what I see here. So if we did 6 and 2 HEAL has to happen. So 2 classes on HEAL, and then we do the behavior stuff.
Our walking is not good.
Classes 3 and 4, right? And then you're like, hey, we feel like we need more work on this. I keep tackling the behavior, but then we may not get to the recall. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then,
Her recall is pretty good. Not saying we wouldn't want to work on it, but it's
Sure.
She's pretty, yeah.
So then if you want more of like a buffer in terms of time, you could do like 9 classes, and that just gives us a little bit more window of time to work on behavioral stuff if needed, but still have classes. Which you most likely still have classes left over to work on recall still. Okay. And if we end up like, let's say you do 9 and 6 classes in, it's like everything's working like it was supposed to. We can just keep advancing your skills and teaching more stuff. Okay. Questions about any of that so far?
So do we pick the number of classes from the start, or we give?
Correct.
Okay.
So I don't care if you did 6 and 3, but you would pay the rate of 6 and 3.
Okay.
Okay, so like let's say 9 off the top of my head is like 1175. Okay, and then 6 is like 825, and then like 3 is like $550. If you did 6 and 3, you would pay a total of $1,300 and something dollars, as opposed to 11 something if you just commit straight up front. Okay, the reason why we do this is I'm already booked like 2 months out. Right, is when you pick your time and let's say it's Saturdays at 4 o'clock, right? Every Saturday at 4 o'clock for, let's say if you did 6, for 7 weeks, okay, so 6 plus 1, that is your time. No one's gonna take it from you. Let's say you cancel or reschedule because you're sick, you have to go out of town or whatever, and by the time that 7th week comes by, you've now used what we call your priority. Okay, so then, because we got a constant flow of people asking and requesting for consultations and training, right? Is Maria will already book someone at the end of that seventh week. Okay? So then if you come back and you're like, hey, we want to extend it, we're like, well, the time's already taken, right? And you might have to wait an additional 2 months because we're already booking out a bunch of other people. Okay, so it just makes it easier for us to just go, you're doing 9, great. Here's 10 weeks of our time, that's for you, no one can take it. If you do 6 and then want to do 3 later, I don't care. But then there may be a delay, or might be a delay in terms of you coming back on the schedule again.
Sure.
Unless you book the time that like nobody wanted. So if it was like a Tuesday at 10 o'clock, like most people work 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So I'm usually evenings and weekends. Okay, so like yesterday I worked, what's today, Saturday or Sunday? Sunday, okay. Saturday I worked 8 to like 8. I'm just all day back to back.
Yeah.
So to keep things rolling, we just tell people, we suggest you just make a decision up front. I even had people do 12 and then do 6, like one summer, and then over the fall and winter and stuff, they'll just train, and then they'll contact us so they get time to practice, and they come back the next year and they finish the last 6. But because they paid for 12 up front, they got a discounted rate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I could see doing something like that.
Yeah, so I don't have a problem with it. We just say, let us know. And then when you're ready to return to finish up your program, we just suggest you reach out ahead of time. Because if you come back in August and you want to start in August, I could be booked until November. Okay, so then you want to reach out sooner, knowing that you want to start it within that time frame.
Okay.
Other questions?
Do we decide right now, or we?
Take your time.
Okay.
Yeah. Mull it over. You can view our prices on the website if you look under obedience training.
Okay.
So even though this is behavior, this is what I would determine as minor behavior. Okay, this is not a behavior type program case. Because my behavior program is more so for dogs that are legitimately like aggressive.
Okay.
And the reason why I have that program is it comes with what we call like a warranty. So like I come in, I look at the case, I'm like, okay, this dog needs a behavior program. I guess 12 to 16 classes to get this done. Come the 16th class, the owner feels good. They're like, hey, we feel really good, we're confident, blah blah blah. I go, great. If anything happens in the oncoming years, you just contact us. I come back, I assess it. I go, okay, 4 classes, they don't pay extra money because they pay for more so a lifetime of training. It doesn't mean they get to see me every week, right? But it means like kind of like I'll come back and like as a warranty address the issue, okay? But this is a case that I see all the time. I have another dog, he's a Cocker Spaniel, same thing, people coming over, being defensive and stuff. When people approach her, getting defensive. We did 1 class on heel, and then I saw her this past Monday, and when I approached her, he didn't care. When I crouched down, he ran up to me and like with those tail like this row. And she's like, why did he do that? And I said, because now he's in a calmer state. He's not built up with stress, he's not on a harness, because he was on a harness. All these things that we changed, and then I was like, that's why I told him, your dog's not aggressive. Your dog is just under stress, and then you're taking him into new environments, and he's building off of that stress.
Yeah.
So, but it's counterintuitive just to how we think.
Yeah, that's reassuring too, because like it's good to hear. I mean, not that we thought she was aggressive, but it's good to hear she's not, and I'm just also afraid that people will think she's aggressive.
Well,
yeah.
So right here, this is a dog bite. Can you see it? This is 10 stitches. The dog is actually here right now for daycare. Okay, he's a Great Dane, which people always like, Great Danes are supposed to be gentle giants.
Yeah.
I'm like, any dog is capable of becoming aggressive. It's just a matter of do they feel they need to be. Okay, so aggression isn't a characteristic. I feel like that's how people treat it. It's characteristic, right?
Yeah.
Oh, your dog's aggressive. Anyone is capable of becoming aggressive, even a human, right? So what happened was he had come in for a 4-week boarding training. It was his first day. He did great with the training, but he had never been in a kennel. And he was a 1-year-old, 100 and something pound Great Dane. And funny enough is I was just trying to see if he would fit in the kennel. Okay, because I hadn't had a dog that big yet. This was very early on in my facility. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going in there. And he just, had a moment and he looked up and he bit my hand. Okay, so he did that out of fear because I was putting him into a space he was unfamiliar with. Okay, so imagine if someone just took you and locked you in a room, right? You're gonna freak out, right? Would you not get defensive for that, right? So that dog's not aggressive because they contact me like, oh my God, I know, is our dog aggressive? I said, no, this is what happened. Okay, so no harm, no foul. I'm not mad at your dog. I need time to heal up. You can bring him back later. We train him. He's fine. He comes for daycare and boarding all the time. Okay, and we've had no issues with him since. So aggression is a response to something. Okay, so even though for you, even like but this is just like the plumber or whatever. For her, she's like, who is this big burly man, and why does he get all this stuff, and why is he in our home?
Yeah.
Okay, so nervous aggression, territorial aggression, maternal aggression. That's why there's words prior to it. The only time I would label a dog aggressive is if they use aggression to handle everything. They bully the owner. They try to bite people coming into the home. You get too close to them on the leash, they try to bite you. Get closer to the food, they try to bite you. Like they use aggression for like everything. Okay, but it still stems from somewhere. But that's where I go. Okay, this dog's more so aggressive because they use it to resolve everything. Okay, does that all make sense?
Yeah.
So when it comes to like the socialization aspect of it and stuff, My suggestion is, because you want to think about the people, right? Is if it's somebody who's met her before and she's been kind of defensive with, and we're trying to get her to open up to them, there may be some touch involved in petting and stuff. Is that person may feel uncomfortable? So my suggestion is you muzzle condition if she's not muzzle conditioned already.
Yeah, well, we have one, I want to call her muzzle conditioned, but
Sure.
we can work on that too.
Is it a basket or mesh style
It's
muzzle?
mesh.
So you want a basket style.
Okay.
A mesh muzzle is meant for 20, 30 minutes. It's called a grooming muzzle because it's only meant to be worn for a short period of time. So a basket style muzzle is a muzzle that can be worn for an extended period of time. She can still open her mouth normally, and pant and breathe appropriately, drink water, and take food as well. Okay. The brand that we use is Baskerville, so it's like basket but Baskerville.
Okay.
You know, on Amazon, you want to get Baskerville.
Okay.
Because Amazon has knockoffs of everything, right? Is the Baskerville is a hard rubber, whereas the Amazon knockoffs are a soft rubber. And I've had clients get the soft rubber one, and they're almost the same price. They'd be like $2 cheaper, right? And the dog eats the muzzle. Or they push against it, and it's so soft that they can actually make contact with what it is they're trying to bite. Okay? So Basker, and if you forget, just email us, and then we'll get you the information.
Okay.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
So you want to muzzle condition, I would start that process immediately. Oh, that's the muzzle right there. Okay?
Oh, okay. We have a painter coming in tomorrow, and he's met her, and I mean, she doesn't like him, but he's good with her, so it could be a good opportunity to do that.
So with muzzle conditioning, all you're doing is pairing positive to the muzzle, okay? And we have a link on my website called Training Resources, which goes over like all the stuff that we use. And there's a section that has like 3 videos on muzzle conditioning, one by myself and then one by a couple other trainers. So the counter conditioning is to get her comfortable with the muzzle, so that it's just another thing that she wears. Because if you only put it on when she's gonna go under stress, she's gonna associate, I wear this, plumber comes over, or whatever, painter comes over, right? And then she's gonna start having a negative association, okay? So muzzle conditioning takes time. Some dogs can take as quick as a day, other dogs can take months. So I always tell everybody, now, muzzle conditions, by the time we get to the point where we need it, you've already had a month or a couple of weeks, or at least a couple of weeks of conditioning, and we don't treat it like a last minute high school project. And try to do it the night before, because people still do that.
Okay.
Because you want to think of the muzzle as a stressor. It takes away your primary form of defense, right, which is her mouth. So then if you've got the e-collar, you got the muzzle, and you got some random person coming into your home, you got 3 stressors going on. Okay, so then removing the muzzle just makes things a bit easier in terms of it being a stressor, where we just focus on the socialization stuff. Okay, so with that, it's because of the person, right, and for you as well, because you might be a little bit uneasy because you're going to be pushing thresholds and comfort zones you've not pushed before. Is if she attempts to bite, it's okay. She can't cause any real harm. We can correct her and keep pushing forward, because what happens is people see the bite and they go, oh, it's not working, and I go, no, this is just part of the process, right? She has to attempt it, be corrected, and we keep pushing. Otherwise, if she goes, I tried to bite, you pulled me away, and the person left, that's exactly what she wanted to do, okay? So it's all part of the process. It's really just learning how to do it and how to do it correctly, and then it's a matter of just repeating the exercise. Okay? Questions?
So if we sign up today, there will be 2 months for the first class.
Depends on your availability.
Okay.
Okay, so if you have like daytime availability during the week, easier to get you in sooner. Okay, so I had a couple clients that signed up within a couple weeks because they had availability like on Tuesday and like Friday or something like that.
Okay.
I guess it depends on how important is it that we're both there, I guess.
I'm very
It's more
flexible
flexible than mine, so.
Ideally, for the first class, and then the socialization classes, so probably class 1 and class 3 and 4 would be the most important ones. We do film everything though. So even if you don't make it, you can review your own video and see your own dog being trained, and ideally, hopefully that's enough insight for you. Otherwise, when you come in, it's just kind of, if she came to 2 and then you came to the 3rd one, I'd probably just focus on you, because she's already got a couple of classes with me, so I can kind of get you up to snuff on the collar and everything. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be good, because I'd like to get started.
Sure. Other questions?
I guess before the first class, it sounds like we should start the muzzle. We should start getting her used to the e-collar. Are there other things we should be thinking about before the first class, like going through all the YouTube videos you already have on there?
No, I mean, if you want to get an idea, lesson ones on my YouTube channel are always great to watch because no one knows what they're doing,
Okay.
right? So it gives you a feel for what the first class is going to look like, and then kind of some insights, so that when you show up, when I coach you through it, like you're already kind of somewhat familiar with it.
Okay.
You would do nothing with the e-collar until I see you, and once I see you confirmed on the calendar, I would send you an email, and then I would give you videos to watch to prep you for the class. But you would just watch them. You wouldn't do anything in the video.
Okay.
It's more so you come in with knowledge. So when we jump into the training, it's not just this barrage of information.
Okay.
Other questions?
Do you think we should take her out of the harness right
Yeah.
away?
I mean, if she pulls to the point where she puts pressure on her trachea, she's fine. It's already been how long, right?
Yeah.
It's not gonna make her any worse, but when we do the first class of training, your standard flat collar and the e-collar is all you're gonna need.
Okay.
So we would just clip her to her flat collar because we're gonna start the training process.
Okay.
We would not use a harness at that point anymore.
Okay. The
Okay.
biggest, I think also at the beginning, she was pulling out of her collar, so that was one reason why we
That
were
was the
using the
main,
harness.
we would, before we got the harness, we would wrap the leash around her belly and tie it, which essentially was kind of like the harness, essentially, but that was, because she had pulled out of her collar once or twice.
Yeah, if she pulled out her collar, it's too big.
Okay, yeah, we have gotten a different collar.
Is it a snap buckle collar?
Yeah.
Okay, so as long as it keeps its tightness, it's fine. But I don't recommend snap buckles because over time they get worn and they just loosen themselves and you're constantly tightening it up. Also, the snap on the snap buckle can break. We've had that happen to a couple of dogs. Okay, I like a regular belt buckle or flat buckle style collar because they're secure. They're not gonna get out of that as long as it's fitted correctly. Okay. If you want extra security and she doesn't get out, there's also the martingale style collars, which they tighten up and they put tension so they can't slip out of it. They use them a lot on greyhounds because greyhounds have a thicker neck than they do a head. So the collars will just slip right over. So that's where martingales come in.
Interesting.
But yeah, a flat buckle that's fitted correctly should be perfectly fine. Okay. May I see your e-collar?
Yeah.
Where did you learn all this?
So 10 years ago, when I got my child named Xena, who was a fearful dog, just like any other owner, I just want to help your dog. Now she wasn't aggressive. Yeah, you're gonna want to return that.
Return it?
Yeah, if you can.
I think I have a box and it hasn't been used.
Yeah, go ahead and return it.
Okay.
Yeah, she was a very fear-based dog, and I wanted to help her. So I started doing research, and then I had a free coupon for a DVD by Cesar Millan. So I submitted the coupon and I watched the DVD, and I was just fascinated. It clicked really well with me. And I started applying everything. Then I started volunteering at a animal shelter. And there was I lied and I said I was a dog trainer. Because I wanted to work with the dogs. And there was dogs that were labeled as human aggressive. And I learned that it was just because the people were pushing the dogs wrong. And then I was walking all these dogs that people couldn't walk, and they're like, oh my god, the dog tried to bite me earlier. I'm like, you probably did something wrong because the dog was completely fine with me. And then studied Caesar, all his TV shows, watched them and rewatched them. And then I found Richard Hines, who's my mentor in Miami, and I spent 3 months with him studying under him because he does e-collar. And then came to Chicago and I've been here ever since.
Cool.
Yeah. Other questions?
Which is the collar that we should get?
Sure. So the collar, how much does she weigh?
45.
45 pounds. Okay.
Just under.
So you have two choices. There's the Doctor 2300, and Maria will send you this information.
Okay.
2300 is meant for 7-pound dogs and under. Okay. And it's perfectly safe to use even though there's a 25-pound gap. I could use it on my Chihuahua who's 8 pounds and is perfectly fine. There's also the Doctor Black Edition, which is meant for 70-pound dogs and over. Again, perfectly safe to use on all sizes of dogs. The only difference is the output. Okay, so what the output is if you get a smaller collar, let's say a collar is meant for a 35-pound dog, 80 on that collar could be 30 on a higher power collar.
Oh, okay.
So it's just a little bit more punchier. Okay, so it just means you get more from less. So the reason why I give you the two options, it's just you pick and choose. I think you're gonna be fine with the Dogtra 2300.
That's Dogtra,
Dogtra.
okay.
Yeah. 2300 is meant for 7 pounds and under, so there's plenty of give. The thing that we are concerned about is if let's say she was 70 pounds, I have to think your dog is 70 pounds, she's got a thicker coat of fur, so that acts as a buffer. She's gonna be under stress, right? She's gonna be agitated. So then these are all variables in the e-collar, because if she's at 70 pounds, she could override it, okay, and ignore it. So then I would push you to a higher powered collar, because then I'll tell you, like, in case something happens and she's overriding the other collar, you don't have to worry about it because you got the highest powered collar there is. Okay, so there's plenty of give for her, and what I saw right now, I don't think you need the black edition, but there's it's like a $40 difference. So if it's kind of like you'd rather have it and not need to worry about if something happens, you already have the higher power collar as it is. Otherwise, you could do the 2300 and everything should be fine. Okay, the 2300 runs around 287-ish with tax. The black edition runs around 325-ish with tax. So like a $40 difference. Okay, other questions?
Yeah, so do you have any questions?
I'm trying to think here. Yeah, I mean, if you want just to learn a bit more, feel free to watch, lesson 1. I also have a playlist on my YouTube channel titled Client and Dog Training Highlights. One dog is Lake. She's a really good one to watch. She was a 60, 70 pound pitty. Came in super reactive. And then by the end of the class, she's completely calm. And then I think I even pet her and she was fine. But when she comes in, like, she's like going after everything. And I break it down where I explain e-collar and how it works with like shifting the psychology of the dog. So if you just want to get more feedback on that, like, those videos are great because it's not like an uncut hour lesson that you have to watch and kind of like sift through everything. It's meant to educate. It's cut down to 15-20 minutes, so it's more condensed.
Oh, great.
Okay. Otherwise, actually, most common question I get is, when does the e-collar go away? Okay. You guys drive?
Yeah.
Do you go on the expressway?
Yeah.
Do you go the speed limit?
No.
I do.
You do.
Okay. You're rare.
Yeah.
And you can agree, yes. So, when you see a cop car, what happens?
Break.
Yeah, you slow down. You go the speed limit, right? Why?
Because to follow the law, or
Yeah.
to not get caught.
To not get caught, not
Yeah.
get a ticket, not get pulled over, right? So think of the e-collar as your cop on a collar, okay? Because people always ask, when does a dog learn to be a good dog? That's not a thing. Okay, that's just a thing that we've been taught growing up and stuff like that, right? It's kind of like myth, so to speak. Dogs, if dogs did that, like, I probably wouldn't have a job, because at some point the dog was like, you know what? I really make life a living hell, and I feel really bad about it. So I want to change my ways and like be a good dog and be friendly to everybody. It just doesn't happen, okay? So that's why I said the e-collar is like a cop on the collar, because when it's present, she's going to be more responsive, she's going to be more obedient, more well-behaved, because there's a threat of consequence.
Yeah.
Okay? So all this means is if she's going to be on a walk, out off the leash, if she's going to be around people coming over and stuff, you have it on. Every case is different. Some people, if the dog's really bad, I'll tell them anytime this dog is around a person, you have to have a collar on. Other cases, they might have the collar on the first 15 minutes, and then once everything dies down, the dog's fine. They take it off, the dog's great. Other cases, the dog's fine. They don't need the collar anymore for people coming over, okay? But outside, you cannot account for life. Things happen randomly. Dogs randomly lunge, right? You can't always find which one's going to be the non-reactive one. So it allows you to regain control even in situations where you've lost it, okay? So just a cop on the collar. When you need it, you have it. When you don't need it, you don't have it. So she's a great dog inside the house. She's a great dog with kids and stuff like that. And you know, like, yep, you don't need it here. You don't have it, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah, I think I don't think I have any.
Okay. Well, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing I've not seen before. So you can reach out to Maria.
Okay.
Just be aware that most likely there may be another 5 or 7 day turnaround.
Sure.
Okay. Because now you're back in line to book, and now there's more consultations being in the process being booked, plus other onboarding clients. Okay. Once you're in and you're a client and everything, you have your time, everything's much more direct.
Okay.
Okay. Which is why I'm booked. A
Yeah.
couple months out. COVID slowed everything down, and then once 21 came, everything just 180. Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of dogs needing training.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, but in the meantime, don't look at it as anything bad, because it just gives you time to work on muscle conditioning.
Yeah.
Whether you start in a week because you have flexible availability, or you start in a month or so, like, just please take that time to impose a condition.
Okay.
Because it sucks when we get to the point where we need it and the owner's like, oh crap, I didn't do it.
Yeah, I need to
And
order it.
Yeah, and then we have to like stop and then they have to come back months later to finish and all that stuff. It's just,
Okay,
yeah, okay.
okay.
So if anything else pops up, feel free to let us know. Otherwise, you can email Maria or she'll get in contact with you once you're back in her, back in line
Okay,
for the, it's your turn. Okay?
great.
Awesome.
Sounds
It was a
good.
pleasure meeting everybody.
You too. I know you're ready to go.